my mother. The victim services started when I was running for county attorney. There was a huge amount of rape victims. I had only one minor experience with such a victim, and it was actually my partner in my law firm who was representing her when she was called to the stand. I did not go to the trial, but I read the transcript later, and I got moved by it, and so did my wife, and so did my mother, about how victims were treated, particularly in sexual assaults. And so I ran on that, saying I'm going to do something about it. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do when I was running for office.
What precipitated the start of the victims' rights movement was a particular case.
She asked me for a quarter to buy a stamp.
And it was the case of State versus Frank Atwood.
Panic spreads through the city of Tucson.
2021. Waiting for you, babe. We all love you very much.
Frank Atwood was a convicted pedophile from California. He was on parole, and he was headed to Texas. And on his way to Texas, he came through Tucson, Arizona, looking for his next victim. It was 8-year-old Vicki Lynn Hoskinson.
So tonight we are talking, like I said, about crisis theory and victimology. So the training is broken into 2 parts. One is available for anyone in the community, but all of our volunteers have to go through that, which is our basic crisis intervention training. And it's really a simple model of how you help somebody in a crisis situation. We're going to define what a crisis is. We're going to talk about some of the physiological, emotional, and mental reactions that people experience when they are in a traumatic situation.
When I first started in the Pima County Attorney's Office, victims were not an integral part of the system. Victims actually had no legal rights whatsoever. They had no right to be in the courtroom, they had no right to be present, they had no right to be heard, they had no right to confer with the prosecutor, they had no right to give input to the judge. They absolutely had no rights. Defendants, however, had all the rights.
I never thought that he would harm me in any way at all because he was never physical with me at all. He ended up shooting me 7 times, all on my left side and in my abdomen. I was in the hospital for 6 weeks, and then I was in rehab for 2 weeks. I couldn't even sit up at first. I had to learn how to sit up again. I had to have an elbow replacement, and I've had multiple other surgeries on my arm and my hand. I couldn't use my hand or my arm for the longest time until I had a lot of surgeries to get them working to where I can kind of use it now, but I can't work anymore. I can't even tie my hair back in a ponytail because I can't touch my left hand to I can't reach my face or my head. And because of my foot being injured, I can't walk very well.
Several years ago, I also was on the other side of it, where I was involved in a very high-profile case where several people were shot, and a close friend of mine was killed. And victim services came, and I was a victim at that time. And from that experience, I learned this was very, very, very valuable. And it's been, I would never wish it on anyone to go through something like that, but it gives you a perspective from another side of the people that we help and how we can help them.
And so what our job is to come in and to help them get to a spot where they emotionally are able to process, vent, validate those feelings, and then help them begin to think about what their normal coping skills are and what they can do to be able to get through the next hours, days, and weeks.
I just felt so sick all the time because I just had no energy to do anything, and I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go on with life. I didn't want to try to do anything again.
And it started off being mostly volunteers because we didn't have a lot of money, but I felt it was something very important. And as I would witness myself going over there and sitting in on some of the interviews that the victims would be referred to, you know, it just really rang clear that this is not just a good idea for Arizona, this is a good idea for the justice system.
We have developed and created and implemented a number of different programs to assist victims, to have them work with us in a capacity that empowers them and that enhances the criminal justice process.
Crisis is situational, okay? That means something is causing it. There is an event. Honestly, what makes a good volunteer is just somebody that has interest in being able to help somebody who's in a crisis situation. Depending on the scene, you are going to want to help predict and prepare before you leave, and to be able to talk to people about the fact that this may have longer term impacts.
Domestic violence call, a homicide, different situations that we have to follow different procedures.
Crisis 1 Baker, copy the page to West Congress, ETA 15 to 20.
We call it our ABC model of crisis intervention, which is very simple. It's achieve contact, boil down the problem, and help the person cope with the problem.
The main brochure we have is a domestic violence brochure. It has a lot of resources and numbers on courts and orders of protection, various other things, counseling. Emerge is the main organization that works with domestic violence victims and helps them. We have a brochure from them about their services and how to contact them. And we also have what's called a shoe card, something that a domestic violence victim can slip in her shoe and always have with her, that has phone numbers.
We also have adopted lethality assessments. These are assessments that enable law enforcement on the scene of a domestic violence crisis call to be able to very quickly make a determination as to whether or not that particular victim is a high risk for being in a situation that is lethal.
The relationship that exists in these situations makes it very difficult for victims to be able to leave, get help, and for defendants and perpetrators of the abuse, the abusers, to stop doing the abuse.
Barbara LaWall started the Courthouse Dog Program about 3 years ago, and we got our first dog about 2 years ago. And so Russell, the Golden Retriever on my right, your left, was the first dog that we got. And his job and Blake's job are to work with children and adults who have been victimized for a variety of crimes.
The victims would be less apt to be fearful. They would have some counseling on what the defense lawyer might cross-examine him, but it was to help the people, to give them some kind of place to go to talk about their feelings being a victim.
So that you're aware, his family is in the courtroom, and I've reserved some seats in the back of the courtroom on the left. There will also be an interpreter there if you feel like you need it.
Colleen, an advocate from the county attorney's office, came along with, and she brought Russell, one of the dogs, and it was very nice that she was there to answer any questions about anything I had.
I'm scared to see his family.
Okay. Well, I will be sitting next to you, and we can work with you in terms of what feels comfortable when you're in the courtroom, and create some distance if that's going to be helpful. But basically you decide what is going to be most comfortable for you.
They actually offered to let me go to the courthouse and visit another trial going on so I could see like what it would be like and where I would be sitting to testify and like how the whole thing worked.
I want the judge to hear
my letter. I want, you know, the jury to hear, and but I'm afraid, you know, if I break down, I won't be able to complete reading it. So that's a big relief and comfort to know that you'll be there for me.
My mom had told me that before she even found out exactly what happened to me, there was somebody at the hospital in case she had any questions about anything that was going on, and we're very blessed to have like that person there.
Here you have people who have the understanding of the law, the availability to get a lawyer in and talk to them, and the counseling that can be given to that, and it doesn't cost anything.
It's been a real privilege to work with victims who are often at their most vulnerable spot in their lives when they're dealing and struggling with significant trauma, grief, or loss, and to provide them with some small measure of care and comfort and compassion that hopefully allows them to begin down that road to recovery.
We keep the victim at the center of all of this. And what we look at always is how can we best serve the victim?
A very professional environment. Russell, come here, buddy.